السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كلوا من طيبات ما رزقناكم واشكروا لله إن كنتم إياه تعبدون وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله طيب لا يقبل إلا الطيب صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. MashaAllah, it's always an honor and a blessing to be back home. I'm not sure why I'm up here when Mawlāna is here. I don't know if you guys have seen Mawlāna's health. He used to, MashaAllah, I think when the students were in ḥifz during my time, there used to be a mandatory tahajjud session, and that included going to the gym and playing basketball or playing football. Even if you didn't want to, you're still going to play. And you see, MashaAllah, even in the middle of class or in his off hours, I don't know if he has any off hours, but he'll be walking, MashaAllah, around the madrasa or around the building or around, all of the madaris that they have here, right? Going from boys to girls building, MashaAllah. The walk continues. So I'm not sure how much more I can offer here with him sitting here. But inshallah, hopefully there's some khair that will come. What I wanted to start off with, since mashallah we're always in a classroom setting at the madrasa, so I start off with a question. Question is what is the number one cause of death and disability in the USA? What is the number one cause for death and disability in USA? Yes, go ahead. Huh? Obesity? Okay. Did somebody say pan? Diabetes. Oh, okay, so pan. You said diabetes? Okay. Diabetes? Yes? COVID? He said COVID. All right. Yeah. Cancer? Okay. No? Rabies. Rabies? All right. Yeah? Anything else? No? Okay. Yeah? Huh? Violence? Okay, these are good answers, mashallah. Good answers. So there's a study that was done by the Gates Foundation in 2010. This is called the Global Fund Study. And in that study, there's a 10-year study. And the results of that 10-year study, that the primary cause of death and disability was our diet. And the standard American diet is pretty sad. That's what it stands for, right? It's the standard American diet. So you don't want to follow that sad diet and thinking that when I follow this sad diet, I'm going to end up being happy. It's not going to work. But before we get into that, before we talk about diet, that term diet, I kind of want to switch up the script a little bit. When we're talking in Islam, as Muslims, when we read the ayah, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ, we wholeheartedly believe that the Prophet ﷺ is the best of role models for us at home, at school, before going to sleep, while eating, while we're interacting, while we're in salah, all the pillars, yes, mashallah. So he is perfect in every facet of his life. And what I wanted to do was break down foods into two categories. You have number one are the foods that are called primary foods. Primary foods are those foods that affect our health that are not on the plate. They're not on the plate and they affect our health. There are many that can be part of this category, but the four key ones are number one, your relationships, number two, your career, number three, physical activity, and number four, most important of all, is your deen, your spirituality. These are your primary foods. You can eat the most organic, mashallah, homegrown, whatever you want to talk about, food at home and get it from the grocery and pay extra couple dollars to get organic. That's good and great. But until we align our primary foods along with our secondary foods, those secondary foods are not going to be much benefit. So when you might have friends at home, or you might be one of those individuals as well. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go work out. MashaAllah, I sweat. 30 minutes, 40 minutes, I go to the gym. I come back home and I just eat some Takis. I come back home, let me just mix some, in our times, I was just mixing some Cheetos with the dal chawal. Making that was our own salam. It doesn't sound too good anymore. But that time it sounded very good. So, Cheetos with dal chawal. Okay. However, as Muslims, we excel in every facet of our life. Right? We have, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states that إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُ بِالْعَدْلِ وَالْإِحْسَانِ Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَتَبَ الْإِحْسَانَ فِي كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. That this quality of ihsan applies to every facet of our life. Not just when we're at work, not just when we're in front of the teacher, not when we're just in front of our parents, not when we're just in salah, but every facet of our life, we have ihsan. So that applies to your primary foods, which we talked about, the nourishment that we get outside of the plate. And also the secondary foods, which is the nourishment that our body receives from the plate itself. What foods that we put on the plate. And we always want to emphasize when we're talking about foods, high quality foods, and that's exactly like how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Qur'an, right? Quality over quantity. Same thing in ḥadīth, we see quality over quantity. And we probably had talks after talks what halal is. Right? You've heard many talks on this topic. What is halal? Okay, mashallah. I think as Muslims now we have beaten that drum pretty well, and we're doing well in that concept and in that science. We know what halal is. Now we know that we're talking about an animal that 3 out of the 4 veins need to be severed. We know that the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala needs to be mentioned. We know that the slaughterer has to be Muslim, or if it's not, then it's Ahlul Kitab and they're saying the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know that. But what's next? What's next? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in 4 places in the Qur'an, when He's talking about food, He brings the word halal, and right after that He brings the word tayyib. Halal and Tayyib, halal and Tayyib, halal and Tayyib, halal and Tayyib. Right? Most sifa, it comes together. So halal, fine. We understand. We know that, okay, it's food that's permissible for us to eat. But is that it? Is that all as Muslims? We're just going to suffice with, C- type of food, D- type of food? Is that what we're going to be? Is that the type of people we're going to be now? We don't suffice with that in our school. We don't suffice with that at work. Like I'm fine with getting minimum wage at work. We don't act like that. I'm fine with just getting a C- or a D- and just barely passing the class. MashaAllah, Alhamdulilah, great job. D-. Oh, you fine with that? I don't think so. So why are we doing the same thing to our food? Why don't we apply that same aspect to our food? Primary food and secondary food. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states in Surah Al-Baqarah, that يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُلُوا مِن طَيِّبَاتِ مَا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ وَاشْكُرُوا لِلَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ إِيَّاهُ تَعْبُدُونَ. That, O believers, that you eat from those food that are tayyib, that are pure, that are wholesome, from that which we have provided you. وَاشْكُرُوا لِلَّهِ, then thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِن كُنتُمْ إِيَّاهُ تَعْبُدُونَ, if you truly worship Him. So as Muslims, we need to optimize our bodies, need to optimize our physical health, we need to optimize our spiritual health, we need to optimize our mental health. Every aspect of our health, we need to optimize it. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet ﷺ, as I mentioned, when they talk about food, they're talking about food that is nutrient dense. They're talking about food that is going to be beneficial for you in the short term, beneficial for you in the long term. And this isn't something that, I just came up with. This is the Mufassirun have talked about this years before, these data, all the data that we can quote. Yeah, mashallah, you can go ahead and you can read PubMed and you can read all of the other data that's present. Fine, that's good and great, mashallah. But this is the Prophet ﷺ, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about this over 1400 years ago. The data is going to change from one week to the next. You'll have one, I've read over hundreds of diets. And one week they'll say that this diet, mashallah, is a cure for everything. The next week they'll say that diet, mashallah, that shouldn't even existed before. Shouldn't even existed. So if you read the Mufassirun, and if you read what they have written in terms of what tayyib means, that they say that al-intifa' min jameel wujuh, or they say that it's beneficial from all aspects, or they'll say that it's beneficial in the short term. They'll say that it's beneficial in the short term and the long term. It's not just, mashallah, let me go eat some Hershey's, I'm going to feel good for 5 minutes, and then 1 hour later I'm sleeping. You're going to crash. That's not good. That's not what, I'm going to treat myself to something nice, and then you treat yourself to some junk. That's really treating yourself? Donuts, whatever, whatever you want to call it, that's not treating yourself. You're not treating your body. No, that's not treating it. You enjoy food. I'm not saying go outside and start eating the grass. I'm not. Enjoy food too at the same time. We're not like going from one extreme to the other extreme. And why am I saying that? Because if you'll see individuals who there was a pastor at his church. That's actually what he told his community. And they went outside and started eating the grass. And 1 week later, I don't know how many of them made it. I'm not sure. So, I don't know how much time, we have a few minutes, but, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He says Halal and Tayyib, the first word, halal, is talking about the hukm of the food. Is it halal or not? Is it haram? Is it even possible for you to consume? But then Tayyib is referring to it being nutrient dense. It having benefit to your mind, to your body, to your soul. It has benefit to all aspects of your health. No? That's what it means by tayyib. And, 100, 200 years ago, tayyib would have just referred to the food that was bought or received in a halal manner through wealth that was pure. It wasn't wealth that was haram. That was fine. Maybe your grandparents, your great-grandparents. There was no concept of organic. That wasn't even there. 100, 200 years, that wasn't even there. So everything was already organic. Everything was already homegrown. Everything was already in season. That was it. No. So there wasn't a need to discuss, this aspect of organic. There wasn't a need for the Muslims to discuss this, because everything was already healthy in a sense. But now we go farther and farther away from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. Then we have to introduce, we have to add, things that the Arabic language allows for. We're not making things up in the Qur'an. No, the Arabic language allows for it. Right? When we say tayyib, something that is pure, that is wholesome, that is nutrient dense, the language allows for it. No. By definition, the scholars will say that the opposite of tayyib is either khabith or wakhim. And the only thing that I can think of when we talk about that are the useless ingredients that we see in the snacks or in the food that we eat. Prime example. I don't know if you guys would like me after this, but I'm just going to mention it anyways. Biryani, huh? Biryani. No. We love biryani, right? We love biryani. But like, why in the world do we have to add like red and orange food coloring to biryani? That's not going to change the taste, is it? You tell me, is it going to change the taste? Food coloring not going to change the taste. It's going to change your microbiome, though. Right? It's going to change your gut and the ability that your gut is going to have to break down that food. That's what it's going to change. It's going to change the aspect of your genes to turn on and off. It's not going to change your genes per se, but there's a concept called epigenetics, which is when you use your food, environment, and these things, primary food and secondary foods, to turn on and off your codes in terms of genes. Like I'm going to have a negative response to so-and-so food. I'm going to have a negative response to so-and-so, pollution. That's what it does. That's what food does. Primary food, secondary food. So when I'm talking about food, I'm talking about both aspects of it. So our food contains these bioactives. Okay, so you want to make sure you want to keep them clean and healthy. Not only is it going to taste good, it's going to feel good at the same time. Not just feel good for 5 minutes, like when you're eating, I need the whole list of junk food, right? That feels good for 5 minutes. That restaurant, when you go and you eat, mashallah, it feels good for half an hour, maybe not even that much. It don't feel good the next day. It don't feel good the next, hour. Sometimes a couple hours later, it don't feel that good. No. So this aspect of the microbiome, right? It's about 5 pounds, and this, it helps us to digest our food, and that we are able to take the nutrients from our food. We're able to take the vitamins from our food. We're able to take the minerals from our food through that. And if you're jacking that up, if you're ruining the microbiome, then how do you expect to get any benefit from your food? How is that even possible? No. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about kulu min at-tayyibat. In that same verse, He says, washkuru lillah, that you're grateful. How many times do we get a plate, mashallah, beautiful plate of biryani, or a beautiful plate of, halwa, whatever you want to call it. And then, oh man, did this again? This again. How many times do we say that? We got this. How do you think you're going to get any type of benefit from that food if you're not even grateful? Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala attributed, He put it in the same exact verse that when you eat, okay, you also show gratitude for anything that you've been given. Gratitude to whatever you've been given. If you've been given a few dates, you've been given some water, some zamzam, whatever the case may be, you're showing some gratitude. Now I don't have much time left, and what I wanted to do was, yes, we want to talk about the Prophet ﷺ's diet, but many of the foods that the Prophet ﷺ ate were according to season and according to the geography where they were. So you might have some of them, you might not have some of them. Okay, and there's a hikmah behind eating according to the season, because your body is going to gain warmth or become cold to that body, whether it's watermelon. You don't go and eat watermelons when it's negative 10 degrees like in Chicago. It's not going to feel so good. No. And I'm not saying I'm not telling anybody to go become vegan or anything. But man, just think about how much meat you eat. Yes, Prophet ﷺ wasn't vegan. Okay, he's not vegan, but he wouldn't have it 3 times a day. Okay? He wouldn't have it 2 times a day. There were days, weeks on end where the fire wasn't lit in the house, meaning they weren't cooking. Wouldn't have any cooked meals unless it was given as a gift. No. So don't get me wrong, I don't want you to come out of this, oh man, he's the guy that just wants me to hate all my food. No, kulu washrabu wa la tusrifu, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you enjoy your food, you enjoy your drink, but not in excess. Not in excess. And I can kid you not, that's not possible for you to apply that ayah unless you mashallah, you really have some type of himmah. But it's not, I don't think it's possible for you to not eat in excess unless you're eating nutrient-dense food. If you're eating a bunch of junk, then you try it yourself. I mean, you probably already did, right? You have a whole bag of Takis, you have a whole bag of Cheetos, or whatever the case may be, you have a whole bar of Hershey's, you can just eat the whole thing, right? No problem at all. Just eat the whole thing. Now, when was the last time you bought a bag of apples and just started eating the whole thing? Yeah? Not possible, right? Because you're actually getting nutrients from it. You don't feel full when you're eating that garbage. You don't feel full because you're not getting any nutrients from the food. Why are you going to feel full? And I don't have enough time to go into it, but these companies, if you read into the history, some of these companies, whether it's Nestle or some of the, you'll see if you research these snack companies, these food companies, where were their origins from? Some of them you can trace them back to the tobacco industry, and obviously we know that has nothing to do with any benefit to our health. They're in it for the money, right? They're in it to make money. They're in it to make money from you. They're in it to make money from your kids. Okay? Make you go crazy, so you go buy them these snacks. My philosophy at home is simple. If there is no junk food at home, the kid's not going to want the junk food because it's not even there. They don't see it. Right? They don't see it. Why are they going to want what they don't see? They don't see it. They're not going to go walk to the store and go get it. They're not going to go drive to the store and go get it. They know I'm not going to go drive to the store and go get it. No? So that hadith that everybody always quotes, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 food, 1/3 water, 1/3 air. How is that possible if you're eating junk? It's not going to be possible because there's that mind-body connection. And that's through this nerve called the vagus nerve. And when you're eating GMO-filled artificial foods, that signal that your stomach, your gut is supposed to send to your brain, it gets blocked. It gets blocked. You ever see those names, those long names in the ingredient list that you can't read? There's a reason why you can't read them. They don't want you to read them. They don't want you to understand them. You go ahead, just Google one of them. Google one of them and you'll see. You'll see what the origin is. It's definitely not coming from a whole food. It's definitely not coming from tayyibat. It's definitely not coming from the earth. It's definitely something that's genetically modified in some, genetically modified organism from some plant, right? From some warehouse or whatever you want to call it. So, to wrap up, inshallah, since we learned, we discussed, a few moments, we talked about the Qur'ānic principle in regards to nutrition. We talked about hadith that refer to nutrition. What are some foods that the Prophet ﷺ ate? Yes, he ate meat. Okay. Think about the meat that he had versus think about the meat that we have. Did they have a connection with their meat before they ate it? Did they see it the entire time? Did they have some type of relationship with it? Yeah. They would take care of it from the time it was a baby until the time they were going to slaughter it. So they had that connection. They knew every single food that animal ate, whether it was grass or whatever the case may be. They knew it. When you get the meat from wherever you get the meat, do you know anything even about it? Do you know? We just go, how big is it? Oh, mashallah, it's a big one. Okay, mashallah, I'll take it. How many hormones were pumped into it? How many antibiotics were pumped into it? What type of environment did it have? If you go to the slaughterhouses, you see sometimes they're like in a big warehouse and they're all next to each other. They can't even walk. The purpose, that's on purpose, so that they'll get fatter and fatter and fatter. And when you sacrifice it, mashallah, you get a lot of meat out of it. That doesn't mean it's healthy. You can just go for more every time. A big gulp, like a 7-Eleven, right? You just go for more every single time. More doesn't always mean better, especially not in this context. You go for quality. You go for quality. And when you go for quality, then you'll see the benefits, and you'll be able to apply in a much easier fashion the one-third aspect of food. You'll easily be able to apply the ayah of وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا, that eat and drink but not in excess. It's going to be much easier, because now that signal is being sent from the stomach to the brain. Now you are actually following the sunnah of food. Now you're actually following the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ in regards to food. So he had meat. I'm not going to come here and sit you and tell you to become vegan. He had meat. Not as often as we have meat. He had dates, whether it was dry dates, whether it was ripe dates, and different combination, right? He had dates with cucumber. He had dates with melons. He had dates with butter. So dates was a big thing for their society. He had this dish called talbina. It's fine wheat mixed with honey and milk. Let me tell you, I'm already going over. But one thing I thought was really funny. I remember when we were in Pakistan once, and for breakfast, I just tried to look at what people have for breakfast. And I go into, as a half awake, I go to the area, and I see my cousin. He's drinking. It looked like a bowl. We eat cereal in the morning, big glass of milk and some cereal. And I look close. I was like, why is this cereal brown? I was looking. And he's drinking a whole bowl of chai. This is a whole bowl of chai. Like, how much caffeine does a 7-year-old need? Right? How much caffeine does a 7-year-old need? What you give to the kids, they're going to dig it. And don't be surprised later on when you say ADD, he got ADHD, and then you're serving them Takis, you're serving them Cheetos, you're serving them chai, and don't get me wrong, chai is, it has its benefits. You have herbal teas that have their benefits, no doubt. Okay, but within limits, come on. Right? So, that was one of his dishes, talbina. Another dish that he had was oatmeal that was cooked with meat, or it was, cooked with dates, bread. Okay, for each one of these I can probably talk about, but we don't have much time, so I'll just go through, some of the other foods. He had a food called tharid, which is broken pieces of roti mixed with broth, soup, dubba, apple squash, uturunj, different citrus, bitir, melons. He would have fruits of the season. What do we understand? The whole list. You can go on with the whole different types of salt, drinks, zamzam, milk, water. The list goes on. You had different oils. But what do we understand if we want to summarize all of that? All of those foods were in season, number one. All of those foods were coming from the earth, either in the form of a plant or fruit or vegetable, or from the animal that they grew themselves. So they knew exactly what that animal, what form that animal was from the beginning until it came to the plate. From when they say from farm to fork, they knew exactly what that was. We, on the other hand, it's very difficult. Very difficult. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to have optimal primary food and secondary food. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us for any of our shortcomings. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to inculcate the seerah and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.